Hello, hello. I'm so happy that you are here. My name is Flavio. If we have not met before, I am here because Frank Baler asked me to come here, read the book to you. Frank wrote the book, Frank Baler Finds T.H. He asked me to come here and read to you the entire book and make a few comments as I read to potentially elicit a discussion, a conversation among us all. Hopefully, as I make my own comments about these passages, you will also add to the conversation by putting your comments in the comment section. There's quite a bit of information in this book, and Frank Baler and I have discussed this many, many times. I have also read the book many, many times. You already know I edited it along with other professional editors, but in the process of editing it, I had to read it many times. It never ceases to surprise me how dense, how complex, how filled with knowledge and wisdom the book is. So, talking to Frank Baler about the depth of the book, he says, look, why don't you just read the book publicly, like I'm doing right now, and as you're reading it, start making comments so that other people can also add their own wisdom, their own knowledge. And I love the idea. There are several videos already. You can start off on video number 1 if you want, or you can just pick up from here and go forward. We have a lot of story going forward. Wherever you pick it up, just make sure that you subscribe to the channel so that you know when the next video is coming out. Right now, the videos are coming out on Tuesdays and Thursdays. We may be able to get a Saturday release as well. For sure, Tuesdays and Thursdays. And there is one more good news for you. There is a copy of the book here signed by Frank Baler, right here. This one right here. And what we're going to do is give away to any one of you in the continental United States a copy of this book signed by Frank Baler, if only you would subscribe to the channel and make a comment indicating to me who you are in the comment section so that I know. I'll contact you offline, of course, and confidentially, and get your information so that I can mail a copy of the book signed by Frank Baler to you. The book is available on Amazon, but Frank Baler wants to gift one copy of this book to one person who subscribes to the channel. There have been many of you subscribing with the release of every video. Of course, one name will be drawn out of the people who subscribe and put in a comment. You have to put in a comment so that I know your name and so forth. Okay? So subscribe to the channel, leave a name in the comment section saying, I want to be entered or something like this, and a way of me to get a hold of you so that you can receive a copy of your book. Or alternatively, you can email me. The email is in the comments in the description below, letting me know that you subscribed and that you made a comment. And if you get picked out of all the subscribers for this video, then you will receive a copy of Frank Baler's book signed by Frank Baler. Let's read a little bit more. At the stage of the book that we're in, Frank went to see John and Priscilla, and John started off telling Frank Baler a bunch of things about his life, talked about not killing himself, not taking his life, and so forth, And just like John said, suddenly Frank Baler has an outburst in which he says, look, I'm dying here. I'm in too much pain, and I failed. My whole life has failed. I failed the mystical path. I failed everything. So don't talk to me about being a mystic, because I'm out of that path. I failed out of it. So John begins to explain to Frank that, look, if you're going to end your life, there's no sense in us working together. So rather than taking pity, if you look at the conventional, modern, psychological way of taking care of this problem, people receive a whole lot of attention if they simply mention the word suicide. And I don't know the extent to which, there's some statistics that oftentimes a person who attempts suicide doesn't really want to die. I don't know. This is a very complicated topic, not one that I specialize in. I don't know much about it. And I do know that there are some heavy-duty experts on this topic. What I do know is that Frank Baler told me that he was suffering to the extent that he no longer cared to live, which is different from saying that he wanted to take his life. So when John and Priscilla talked about being a true mystic, he says, dude, are you kidding me? I'm barely alive here. So then what follows is a discussion about suicide. And he says, this was one of those moments when everything seems to slow down. This is Frank Baler talking. Either the mind speeds up quite a bit, or time actually slows down. Was the first of a series of thoughts that occurred to me during the gap between John's last words and the wife's next phrase. The inner voice that we call thinking continued. So this is interesting. There's this thing that we call thinking, which is actually a voice talking all the time within our minds. What John told me was almost word for word what I told clients who came to see me expressing a desire to die. Do we all tap into the same ideas? I thought, while at the same time feeling the pain of his apparent cruelty. I was truly suffering, and he simply did not get it. I must have been a cruel therapist all these years, I thought, for people have come to me in pain, and I did tell them that killing themselves would only make the pain worse. First of all, I would say, there is no death. The moment after you destroy your body, you will feel more alive than before, except that now you have one more problem to deal with. In addition to the pain that caused you to kill yourself in the first place, there will be the additional pain of no longer having the means to heal the actual problem, which is the use of your body. I never lost a client to suicide in 24 years of therapy, the mind continued. While the explanation above is good, what dissuades people from killing themselves, I thought, is knowing that it's not necessary to take their lives in order to take the pain away. People actually want to live, as I do. I kept thinking, what we need when we suffer is a way of truly ending the pain, a way out of misery and into joy. I must have become distracted because Priscilla's next words jolted me a little. Let the dead care for the dead. She added, quoting Jesus. So the book continues, but let me make a couple comments here. This is a very, very difficult topic, and if you have lost a loved one to suicide, my heart goes out to you. What the person who's having trouble with life needs to understand, and maybe you can be that voice that helps them understand this. What that person needs to understand, there are two things we need to understand in that moment. Number one, destroying the body, killing oneself, does not take the pain away. It doesn't, because what happens is the moment after that, we feel just as alive, if not more, than we did before taking our lives. Persons completely alive without their bodies. And I'll tell you a little bit more about that, but that's one of the things that we need to know. And when we find ourselves on the other side, just as alive, but with no body, we no longer have the means to solve the problem. So let's say that the person had too much debt. I'm just making this up. And as a result of the extreme debt this person was under, he or she decided to kill himself. On the other side of the suicide, they feel just as alive, but now they no longer have the means to come over and face their debts. They don't have a body anymore. They bury their body or they cremate it, and they're no longer on this earth. They cannot face the situation. So we know that we escaped, but there's nothing we can do about it. So killing oneself does not solve the problem. That is the number one thing that we need to keep in mind. And the number two thing that we need to keep in mind is that it really is not necessary to destroy the body in order to destroy the pain. In other words, when we suffer, what we really want is to take the pain away, true? But taking the body away via suicide is not necessary in order to take the pain away. We just want the pain to be gone. I get it. And what makes the pain go away is not the destruction of the body. What makes the pain go away is an understanding of what we are, who we are, what the purpose for all of this is, and an adjustment of our way of thinking to the purpose for this thing that we call life. As we begin to make an adjustment within ourselves, everything falls into place. It is like in the old days when we had a slide projector, like a movie projector. You would turn it on, set up your screen. In the old days, nowadays people have huge TVs and stuff, but in the old days, you would set up the screen and turn on the projector, and usually you couldn't see anything, just a big blob, a big blur, and then you had to put the image in focus. And as you adjusted the focus, when I was a kid, they were manual. You have to turn a knob by the lens of the projector. Later, they had little buttons in the remote control when I was older, but when I was a kid, the first projector I saw, you had to carefully turn a knob, a dial, in the front of the projector, and then the image on the screen would come into focus. So an adjustment at the level of the projector would bring the image on the screen, which represents our lives, into focus. In other words, if I'm sitting around watching a picture or a movie and I cannot see it because the image is blurry, getting up and trying to change the screen will not help me, because the lack of focus, the blurriness, is not coming from the screen. It's coming from the projector, which is not calibrated correctly. The projector is us, and the results that we get in life is represented in this analogy by the image on the screen. If our lives are not working, if the image is out of focus, what we need to do is change ourselves, because we are the ones projecting outwardly who we are, what's going on inside of us onto the world. And the world is like the screen. It's like the feedback that I get so that I can know what it is that I'm putting out. So when I'm getting something back from the world that I don't like, the problem isn't the world. The problem is what I'm putting out. And that understanding is the core of the mystical path. The world isn't out to get us. The world is simply a mirror that reflects back to me what I have been putting out into the world. If I put out good vibrations, I get back good vibrations. If I put out vibrations of pain and sadness and perhaps resentment or hatred, I'm going to get back exactly the same thing. The law, cosmic law, is the same for all of us. So if I'm experiencing a lot of pain from the world, then it behooves me to change what I'm putting out. And that's the function of the world. It functions as a mirror so that I can see what I'm putting out unconsciously and make changes. The changes that we make according to what we observe in our lives, the collection of those changes is called evolution. Not physical evolution, but spiritual evolution, personal evolution, mental evolution, emotional evolution. How we see life, how we see the world, that has to evolve, that has to change. So what John explains to Frank Baler is that number one, there's no point in taking your life because that will not take the pain away. And number two, and most importantly, it isn't necessary to take your life in order to take the pain away. And it isn't necessary because there's a way to take the pain away without taking a person's life away. This is really, really important. So it's also interesting that Frank Baler says, dude, it's amazing how John explains to me almost word by word, word for word, what I used to explain to my clients. Yeah, it's uncanny, it's incredible. And yet that's how it is. All right? This is just how it is. We're going to continue reading this, and we're going to pick up where we left off in the following lesson. Continue tuning in, subscribe to the channel so you can be alerted as to when the next video is released. And if you think that these lessons are good, make sure that you share them with others so that others can have access to these conversations as well. Now, this is not meant to be a one-way monologue on Frank Baler's book. It's meant to be a dialogue. I would like to hear what you have to say about suicide, about what we're reading about, everything that we're discussing, video by video. Okay? Thank you so much for being here. Mega blessings to all of you. Looking forward to your comments, and I will respond to them. So thank you very much.